Welcome back into the Make It Take It podcast. I am your host today, Matthew Byrne. It is Monday, March 18th on the campus of Indiana University, Bloomington. A little bit colder today, which is in contrast to our week-long hiatus in search of warmer weather. So I hope that wherever people went, they were able to find it. I certainly did. But today I am joined by co-hosts Adam Oppenheim and John Yaley. And Mason Williams is going to be pushing the buttons for us. So we're going to be talking about all things NBA. And it was an incredible slate of games on Sunday, which kind of got swept under the rug because of the selection show for the men's and women's college basketball. So, fellas, what are we thinking for the men's side? Any sleeper picks on your mind? What's going on?
Yeah, in terms of an upset, the one that jumped out to me, it's in the South region. It's James Madison, 12 seed over Wisconsin, who's a 5. Wisconsin, they just do on the pin, but I'm if and James Madison 31-3 record, Wisconsin. So I think I'll probably pick that.
Yeah, I'm going to fully disagree with you there, but we're going to go to Adam next.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough because, once again, I'm going to bet against the Big Ten teams. I just think it's a different style of play in the Big Ten from what I saw in the Big Ten tournament. There's some good teams, but I don't know if they can go farther than some SEC teams and ACC teams as well. I think an interesting matchup to watch is Kansas versus Stanford because Kansas is really banged up. They haven't been playing well. They're without a couple of their top players, and it can be a big-time upset in that region. And also interesting that Michigan State got as high of a seed as they did. I think they were the 9, I believe. And everyone thought they were going to be in the first 4, but it shows how much net rankings play into it, which I think it would take forever to explain how they work. But it's, just crazy how it works in terms of college basketball. Like Indiana was like 95 or whatever, and, they beat Michigan State. It was around the 20s.
Yeah, I'm kind of based on what you said about the Kansas Samford matchup. I'm always skeptical of the matchups that seem like America's pick, like a trendy pick. I think everyone thinks that Kansas is going to lose. So I want to pick Kansas. I think everyone thinks that Wisconsin is going to lose. I want to pick Wisconsin because of it. John already said that. A few other things before we move to the women's side. I think that UConn, for being the number 1 overall seed, got probably the toughest region or one of the toughest regions. It probably should have been an easier path for them. Conversely, Purdue, I think probably got the biggest cakewalk to the Final Four, and they were not the overall number 1 seed. And the last point is that I think that St. John's out of the Big East got absolutely screwed, royally screwed. Far better numbers than some other teams that got in, namely Virginia.
That was a shocker.
Yeah,
I think it's always tough for the committee. It's everyone should realize it's pretty tough, but that's kind of the one miscue. St. John should be in over Virginia. But again, it's one of those March Madness things where if everyone thinks that Virginia might lose or something, I'm going to take Virginia. Now moving over to the women's side, something that I find interesting is UCLA gets the 2 seed. Or no, excuse me, I messed that up. Sorry, Big Ten. Ohio State gets the 2 seed. They're going to play Maine. Indiana played Maine earlier in the year on the road. Seems like Maine is a pretty stingy team, has got some experience there as well. And I mean, guys, just take a look at the Albany 2 bracket on the women's side. I mean, that is just haymaker after haymaker. You got Iowa in the 1 there, but oh my gosh, that is like the for the World Cup, if it's the the pool of death is always the hardest one, then this is the probably region of death.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with you. I was trying to find a fun upset in that region, flirted with a, Middle Tennessee, maybe beating even an LSU round 2, could not get there. So overall, IU is in the Albany 1 region, a little more manageable despite South Carolina, but the game opposite of them, the 5-12 between Oklahoma, Florida Gulf Coast, kind of want to be the lame cliche guy, pick Florida Gulf Coast because of the success they've had in the men's tournament. But overall, I think nothing crazy will happen. Maybe, you know, a 5-12, 6-11. I don't think a 2 seed's going to lose or anything like that.
I think there's a couple things that could potentially be interesting. Starting off with Notre Dame in the Albany 1 region. They won the ACC tournament. They're a really experienced team, and they're in South Carolina's region. I think that's probably the only team that can knock off South Carolina. Maybe some people think Indiana can do that. I'm not sure because South Carolina is just so good all around. They're a great rebounding team and great defensive team. And then in the Portland 4 bracket, Maryland, they've been playing really good ball out of the Big Ten. And that would be an interesting matchup if they can get past Iowa State to face Stanford, who has been just rock solid the entire year. They haven't been talked about a lot because most of the focus has been on South Carolina, but Stanford is a really good basketball team. They crushed Indiana early in the year.
Yeah, definitely some good insight by you both. I will say, Adam, that I also think that besides Notre Dame, that Oregon State could be maybe a sleeper team. They've been playing well. They could maybe take down South Carolina. But no, if you couldn't tell, we've probably been talking about college for too long, and that's kind of how the day went yesterday. Obviously, with the news of the brackets coming out. But moving over to the NBA, that's why you're here. That's why we're here. We're going to get into it. Starting off with Kyrie Irving's game winner 107-105 over the Nuggets. Just a ridiculous shot with, 2 seconds to go off the inbound, takes it to the free throw line, and just the most awkward, not even a floater, just kind of half jumper.
It was like a skyhook.
Yeah, I don't even know. I was shocked watching that.
Yeah, no, the shot's incredible. But beyond that, I think what's great about it is the impact it had. That was an incredibly key game for the Mavs. They're 8.5 back of the 1 seed. They're tied with Sacramento, who's the 6 seed. So they can really realistically avoid the play-in, which would be huge. That game obviously kept them in that position. And Denver, who has looked unstoppable since the All-Star break, they had the 1 loss before that yesterday against Phoenix in overtime. And it looked like yet again they were going to steal another fourth quarter. Mavs had a hot third, but the Nuggets just always get good shots late. And really thought Murray would hit the one with, 5 seconds left. Didn't. And obviously Kyrie kind of stole it for them. So pretty great game.
Yeah, it's so interesting looking at the clutch numbers of the Nuggets. They're so good. And the Mavs outplayed them during that time. Doncic hit that step back 3, I believe, to get the game tied. And then Irving, the most skilled basketball player of our generation. I don't think anyone doubts that. It's obviously the other stuff that comes with Kyrie Irving, but that is just a ridiculous, skyhook offhand. You do not see players, even attempt that. That is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he, controlled the ball, it was over Jokic. That was not unguarded. That was contested, and just a massive win for the Mavs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of the positioning, John, to what you said, and also just the type of shot you said, for Adam, what you said, Kyrie post game was saying that he sometimes just spends an hour straight just working on his left hand. And to that, I say,
does not surprise me.
Practice does make perfect, but also what just a ridiculous kind of moment, as you said, the contested shot of it, the sort of awkwardness of it, even if he works with his left hand for an hour, that's still such a late game clutch shot that you could dream of. And Kyrie was able to hit it. So definitely a good win for the Mavs in terms of positioning and, maybe a little confidence to come with it to down the Nuggets. Moving along, this is, I guess, another ridiculous one with Bam Adebayo, game winner, 104-101 over the Pistons. And that was without Jimmy Butler because I believe he had a concussion. He was out that game. The Heat survived just over the Pistons, but just a ridiculous ending to this game. It's tied going into the final shot. Cade Cunningham takes a shot with 9 seconds left. Shot clock is turned off. And the Heat get the rebound, and Bam Adebayo is just on an island. Where if you think back to the Starry 3-point contest, it's where the Starry ball was located. He was only 3 for 16 from 3-point before making that, and yet it goes in. I know that it's 1 in high chance of Bam actually, making that shot probably on a consistent basis, but just I think a pretty bad decision, late game decision from the Pistons to take the final shot with 9 seconds left and even allow something like that to happen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's the Heat are a little, I don't know how to put this. They're kind of the team you always feel like is, dead and out of the way, and then they come out of nowhere and kind of steal the game. They were great last year in close games. This year they're very strong. And so yeah, I agree with you. Don't necessarily love the Pistons strategy, but you don't expect, a guy like Bam to hit a shot like that. He just to highlight his game as a whole, only 20 points, but 17 boards, shot almost 70% from the field. And the Heat need games like this when Jimmy Butler's going to miss a good chunk of the season. And they are another team like the Mavs who are kind of on that 6-7 border. They're only a half game out of avoiding the play-in. So huge win. You don't want to, lose games to the Pistons, teams like that. You want to secure the easy wins, and they were able to do that.
And the problem was they lost against like the Wizards a week ago. So that was a big win for the Heat and the Pistons. I mean, Monty Williams decided not to call a timeout, and it obviously didn't work. I'm not even sure what Cade Cunningham was looking at. I mean, why would you not even get down to like 5 or something? It's also interesting because Bam Adebayo has 4 threes on the season. 1 in each of the last 3 games now.
Yes,
he's 3 for 3.
I was gonna mention that. I'm glad that you did. So I guess the recency bias is gonna swing his way. But yeah, no, I mean I completely agree. I mean the Pistons led in that game by as much as I think 17 in the third quarter. So post game, Cade Cunningham was saying that he liked the matchup, so he knew that he was gonna sort of take it on.
But you gotta wait.
I know, and maybe he was afraid of the double team at the end once the shot. Once the clock got so low, if someone was going to try to rush him, maybe create a little panic, a double dribble or something like that. So I think he just wanted to take the 1-on-1 when he had it. But no, I'm in complete agreement. I think it is way too early. You cannot give. I don't know if you're worried about a double team or just whatever's going to come at you or just something, or you like the spot on the court where you're shooting from. You still can't do it with 9 seconds. NBA teams just move way too quickly. You can give up, a last-ditch shot, and that's exactly what happened. It should have been closer to 5 seconds, maybe a little bit before. So poor Pistons, 12-55 on the year after that one.
Yeah, the argument for that strategy is, they're in a race now with the Wizards for the worst record. So maybe you trying to lose a game like that.
well, but
is that an investigation to a tank right there? No,
I mean, honestly, if you watch the Wizards and the Pistons, the Wizards are just horrible. Mm-hmm. They're actually a garbage basketball team.
They're
completely.
Worse. Yeah.
Like, who is their future? Tell me, who's their future for the Wizards? Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma. At least like the Pistons have pieces.
Little Koulibaly.
I mean, yeah, he's fine. But the Wizards are like a legit awful team. Like it's one of the worst teams I've seen in some time.
Yeah, no, they're worse. We're probably talking too much Pistons Wizards right now, but Pistons, they as bad as they started, you knew they had some talent. They do have the youth to build for the future. The Wizards, this is kind of how I expected the season to go. I expected them to have the worst record, and they're 11-57, pretty terrible.
Yeah, so moving on, kind of another similar situation. Yeah, I just needed to get you guys off the
no, it's fair.
Pistons Wizards. You guys are gonna crash this show if you wanted to. Moving over to Bucks versus Suns, kind of a similar thing where the Bucks were without Giannis, kind of the same way the Heat were without Butler, but the Bucks still pull away. They beat the Suns 140-129 regardless. Dame Portis Jr. both have 31 points. And as you guys were saying, I mean, this game was just 3-point fest. Suns 42.4%. They hit 14. Bucks 24 for 41. That's 58.5%. Just ridiculous numbers, very, very high scoring game, and definitely a very important win for the Bucks. The Celtics have already clinched. They're 53-14. No one's going to catch them. They're playing so well, but the Bucks are going to try to hang on to the 2 spot as the Cavs have kind of cooled off a little bit. They're 4-6. So, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, no, it was fun game to watch, but a weird one. Like you said, the Suns hit 42% of their threes. They lost by 11.
Yeah.
And they kind of were never really in it. They made a run in the second half to kind of, make it not a blowout. But in terms of the Bucks, I think obviously, like you said, there's no chance of the 1 seed beyond holding off the Cavs. A mentality for Milwaukee could be, let's say we beat Boston in the conference finals. We'd want home court in the NBA finals. There are only, I think, 3 games behind Denver, 3.5 behind OKC. Maybe you try to push, get the second best record in the league. So if you just get through Boston, you'll get home court the rest of the playoffs. So overall, really good win for them without Giannis. Durant did not have a great game, but the rest of the Suns actually did look pretty good despite the loss and the letting up 140 points.
Yeah, I will say this kind of shows the difference of what basketball's like in 2024 compared to like 2016. Like you shoot 42% from 3, you're probably winning a game. The problem for the Suns is they don't necessarily get up enough threes because their 2 biggest scorers or 3 biggest scorers are all mid-range scorers. Durant loves the mid-range. Booker, Beal. If the Bucks shoot 60% on over 40 attempts, they're going to be hard to beat. And that's part of the reason the Celtics are hard to beat. If you take over 53s and shoot 35 to 40%, where are you making up those points? It's the free throw line. That's pretty much the only way besides the 3-point line. And for the Suns, they obviously have Grayson Allen who shoots a lot of threes, but I think Durant, I don't know what he's shooting from 3 this year. I think it's still great, but he's got to attempt more threes.
I mean, I definitely would agree with you, but I think that something that's very interesting is if you go back, way back, feels like way back when, to March 5th, it was the overtime game against the Nuggets. Suns were playing in Denver. Durant just, he had the special stuff in the water bottle. I mean, it was crazy. He was just pulling up from mid-range, but also 3. And it's like you knew he would do it.
Yes.
And he still hit it. So I understand, maybe guys are just having, lights out days. But it's not like I mean, I just overall, I think I agree with you. They got to get up more shots. And I think that they have enough scorers from the outside that maybe any one player on any given night could heat up. And I think that Durant is probably the front runner to do that. But yeah, I mean, just kind of a tough outcome for the Suns. I still think that they're going to be okay, regardless if they can shoot 42%. But maybe when they're shooting 42%, that is just a direct sign that you have to take more because it's a little too high.
Yeah, I just think you should be in the 40s for threes. And you'd have a better chance to win. I mean, Nurkic is doing work on the offensive glass.
Right.
We talked about that, 31 rebound game?
Yeah, rebound
right.
machine.
I mean, that's unbelievable. But Devin Booker scored 23 points, but got to the line twice, attempted 22 shots. That's just it's not good enough.
3, 0 for 5 also.
Every great player finds a way to get to the line or get a lot of assists.
I still think at the end of the day, it would come down to the kind of supporting guys, which is what's funny about yesterday. The supporting cast kind of showed up. Like you said, Nurkic had a good game. Grayson Allen, 6 of 11 for 3. He had 25. Royce O'Neal, 4 of 9 from 3. So if they are able to get, any kind of 7-8 man rotation, 8 is asking a lot. So let's just say 7-man rotation, in combo with the 3 scores. I think that's the ideal, kind of product of what this team would be in the playoffs, is just 3 great go-to guys who can score with, the best of them late in a game. You could go to any of them, and the supporting guys, they can hang on defense. They'll hit their open threes, and it overall is trending that way for Phoenix, which is why, as a fan, you might be optimistic.
Yeah. Moving on over to Wemby. There's a pretty interesting stat line, I will say. 33 points, 14 for 26 shooting, only 1 for 7 from 3-point. And honestly, Adam, you brought in that stat. First player NBA history, 30-plus points, 15-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, 5-plus blocks, while shooting 50% field goal percentage in a game. I think it's impressive. I think that it deserves merit. I think when you're taking 26 shots and missing 6 times from 3, that 33 points is just a little bit underwhelming, especially on a Spurs team that there isn't many surrounding pieces. I don't think that Wemby should be punished for necessarily taking 26 shots. Again, based on what I said about, the help that he gets or the help that he doesn't really get. But still, I don't know. I think the assists and the blocks and the 15 rebounds all together aren't impressive in of itself. But 26 shot attempts, I don't know. 33 points, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think 26 shot attempts is fine for the best player on the team, which I think we can all agree is Wembanyama, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
You saying Devin Vassell? All right. Yeah, I just think, he's a star player. Obviously, the three-pointer's got to come around at some point if he's going to, take a lot of them. But he just draws so much defensive attention, and it's impressive what he's been able to do. And now if they can get him, a real point guard, like a guy like Trae Young, that'd be, great. But it's so fun watching him play. I think he's going to keep putting up these stat lines for a couple of years that no one has done, just because of the force he is on defense. And honestly, the other reason he gets so many blocks is because the Spurs play no perimeter defense. So they kind of all funnel into Wembanyama, and then he gets the block.
Yeah.
So, but then there's some plays where he jumps out to a 3-point shooter, and you're like, wow.
Well, no, I mean, that analysis is right. I mean, he had 7 against the Nets on Sunday. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. 3-pointers need to come around, especially as of late. I mean, 1 for 7, 1 for 5, 2 for 7, 3 for 9, something that doesn't really jump off the page, and would kind of get up his points. So
yeah, no, Matt, I was actually ready to kind of zag against the stat line like you did too.
Okay.
Because, well, from the standpoint of this is kind of an ESPN type stat where it's like if he shot 49% from the field, would it be significantly worse? Or, if he had 14 rebounds. But at the same time, I think I'm more with Adam. I think you're kind of harping on him too much for the 26 shots. The team isn't good. I don't love the 1 for 7 from 3. It's not just the fact that he shot poorly, that I agree with you. He is taking too many. But one could argue the team is bad. They have no chance this year. He's a rookie. Why? Maybe he's experimenting with the offense. Like in theory, he might, be able to, instead of taking 7 threes, take 2 or 3 and then take 5 more paint shots and be better. But going forward, you want him to have a more, I guess, versatile skill set. At the end of the day, it was a great game. I don't hate the 26 shots because he did shoot above 50% and they did win, which is unfortunately pretty rare for the Spurs.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you guys both make a pretty good point. It would be interesting to see if the Spurs kind of had a reliable, point guard or somebody else that could handle the 3-point shooting. I mean, maybe Wemby thinks that he has to take it all himself, and he doesn't have the help around him to convince him otherwise. So, no, yeah, definitely. Moving on, we get the Bulls Pacers.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting game. DeMar DeRozan had 46 points, including the game-tying baseline fadeaway, even though everyone knew it was going to him. Nothing like a baseline long two. That's so DeMar DeRozan. It's unbelievable.
Gordon Hayward, though, no.
Yeah.
He didn't get the baseline, too.
Yeah, he couldn't, fade. DeRozan is just, way back there. I mean, Hayward also probably wouldn't be on the court. He'd be injured.
Okay, damn. What NCAA tournament was that again? Where he had the fadeaway?
Oh, Butler in
probably 2010.
2010, yeah. Brad Stevens was the coach.
I know, but who was what was it wasn't the half court heat.
Yeah, not against Duke.
No, it was the
it almost won it.
Yeah, I forget it, but still, baseline fadeaway jumper. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so DeRozan, I mean, he had a great game, 15 for 24. Still showing that he's the master of the mid-range. It was impressive. And I would assume it was really been solid for the Bulls, especially as of late. I think he had a 30-point game the last time the Bulls played. He was looked at as, second-round pick a couple years ago and has been able to develop along with Kobe White. And now they're, I guess, keeping Caruso. Not sure about Vucevic's fit, but the Bulls are looking solid. And this was a game for the Pacers where you're like, we're not sure if we're quite there yet. They've been really good, actually, against some of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, but they've struggled with some of the lower teams, maybe playing down to their level. But I'm still wondering for the Pacers about the fit between Haliburton and Siakam. I thought it would just mix perfectly. And it's kind of just been a little bit off. A little Pascal Siakam. I remember he had an insane block in that game.
Yeah, no, my takeaway is more Pacers based in their kind of playoff picture than anything, because the Bulls, they're kind of stuck in the 9 seed. If you look, they're a few games out from the 8 and the 10, and I don't think any of us here are really going to be picking them as a sleeper, maybe even to make the 8 seed. But the Pacers, they're the 6 seed, only a half game up on Miami, who we just talked about, who had a big win. And they're both they've been similar lately, both 5-5 in their last 10. And the Pacers, Halliburton hasn't looked great lately. I agree with you, Adam. The fit with Siakam, a little questionable. That is a game you want to win against a Bulls team that you are better than. Kind of, give yourself more cushion over the Heat. They still have plenty of time to kind of pull it together. But like you said, those easy, Eastern Conference wins, you're going to want to beat those teams that are in the play-in or even out of it 11 to 15 seed, and they weren't able to do that.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing kind of moving forward, just because, Adam, you talked about the Halliburton, Pascal Siakam with the Pacers and how it related to that Bulls game. I think something that's really interesting is kind of how that feeds into that Pacers and Timberwolves game on Thursday, March 7th. I know that was a while ago, but that was just an absolutely ridiculous game. If you remember it, with Anthony Edwards taking over the game, scoring the Wolves 15 of last 17 points in the fourth quarter, and also leaping to the moon to seal the game winner. I think that's a little bit interesting. Just when you said those two Pacers, that's kind of where the light bulb went off.
Yeah.
I think that one storyline to follow is that game was the first game without Towns completely because of the meniscus tear. And I think something interesting to follow is how Minnesota has been able to deal with Towns being out. And I think it's been kind of up and down right now for the Timberwolves. Obviously, they narrowly beat the Pacers in that game, who are not renowned for their defense at all. And then they went to the Cavaliers and lost by 9. I mean, that's not bad to do that on the road. Edwards kind of regressed a little bit, and that's a little normal for a 44-point performance. And then they went and they lost at the Lakers as well. Again, that's kind of tough road struggles. Edwards had a better game, but Gobert wasn't really anywhere to be seen, and I think that is really interesting because he had a very good defensive game against the Pacers. And then Timberwolves 18-point win against the Clippers, 19-point win.
That was
against
impressive.
Yeah, that definitely was impressive. And then what was that? Yeah, and again, Anthony Edwards going off for 37 points in that Clippers win. Conley adding 23.
Alexander Walker had a massive.
Alexander Walker
one time from
adding 28. So I think the whole storyline and what I'm trying to get to is that the Wolves are if they're gonna keep going without Karl Anthony Towns, they're gonna need Anthony Edwards to just morph into the hero. And when he does, they have a good shot at winning. And they also need the surrounding cast to really help out as well. Gobert has kind of regressed a little bit over his past 4 games. He's questionable tonight against the Jazz. That could be kind of another with some questionable day-to-day injuries, along with the Wolves. They're in 3rd place or tied for 2nd, 1 game out. So yeah, and they play the Jazz tonight as well. So something to kind of think about is that, in my opinion, the Wolves are going to need Edwards to kind of be the superhero, and they're just going to need, when they do have that surrounding cast, which is very good depth. They're a really good team. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the Wolves without Towns have been kind of what I expected, where the team isn't quite as good. The offense is a little down, but they're, in my opinion, a lot more fun to watch because I love watching Edwards. I don't really care about having Towns out there. It's obviously better for the team. Yeah, but so the results have been iffy. Obviously, the Pacers game was awesome. He was really bad in the Cleveland game, but overall it's been good without Towns. I think for them, like you said, they're obviously going to need Edwards to be that guy more consistently. The shooting can be questionable at times. He does take a lot of shots. I mean, you're just looking at his recent games. He took 35 against the Pacers, 27 against Cleveland, only hit 7, 29 against the Clippers. That is kind of what you want. And when he's hitting, 50+%, they're usually winning.
Yeah.
If he's hitting, 30, 40%, you're probably going to lose. So they are going to kind of live and die with Edwards, which as a viewer, I actually really enjoy.
Yeah, I think it should be interesting with the Timberwolves. I will say, being the 1 or the 2, and unless you're the Nuggets, and you're not worried about facing anyone in the West, you're fine sitting in the 3 spot and taking on a team which would be like the Pelicans or the Kings right now, rather than the Mavericks, Suns, Warriors, or Lakers. I don't know. I'd rather face the Kings and the Pelicans personally.
I totally agree. And the Timberwolves they play Utah tonight, like you said, Matt. But they'll have a back-to-back Tuesday at home against Denver. So that'll obviously be tough. Denver should be favored considering Minnesota on limited rest. But that'd be an awesome win to try to push for a higher seed. But as you said, Adam, maybe they don't even need the higher seed or don't want it.
Yeah, and I think something to highlight about the Timberwolves is that Naz Reid has really kind of taken off without Towns there. Obviously, a very small sample size, but a lot of games. I think it was 59 games last season without Towns, and Reid was, pretty solid numbers. And then this year, only 6 games without Towns this year, 5 recently, and the Wolves are 3-2 in that stretch. But yeah, he's kind of taken a step up. Naz Reid's numbers. I guess I don't really want to harp on Gobert too much. Maybe I was a little bit harsh. I mean, without
he's probably going to be the defensive player of the year.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and I'll walk back my steps a little bit. He's still averaging 15 rebounds, 13 points without Towns this season. I think I was just more so meaning that the points that he does score are just so valuable night in, night out because of that. But as previously said, if Edwards can get it going and people are helping out around him, the Wolves are probably going to still be okay. Now moving on again, 76ers Knicks.
Yeah, I think this was just honestly a terribly played game. And that's what I want to talk about. 79-73, first game since 2016. That's 8 years ago. That both teams scored under 80 points. I know both teams had players out, and they played again Tuesday, and it was a little bit better. Well, not for the Sixers. I think they scored the same exact amount, actually.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, so they scored 79 again, this time with Maxey. But the Sixers were without Maxey, and Knicks were without Randall, and I know at least Mitchell Robinson. And, I mean, just the offense was horrendous in this game. And this is what you're worried about in the playoffs. Obviously, the Sixers will have Embiid back probably, but the Knicks and Sixers still in the half-court offense, you just don't know if you can trust them. And that's why I think people vault the Celtics and the Bucks ahead of them, because they have confidence in the half-court they can score. The Knicks are great playing off their defense, so are the Sixers, but in the half-court, they're really not that good of an offense. And that's sometimes why you see teams fall early who do great in the regular season. Reminds me of like the Jazz a couple years ago. That's why people think, the Thunder might not be great this year for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, just touching on the game itself. Obviously a game with this, poor level of offense, I don't necessarily love, but I do like seeing a result like this or some of the more recent results with lower scores. As much as I like scoring and it's fun, I think it's got, like a lot of people, I think it's, kind of gone too far. The pendulum swung too far. We don't have to go back to the Cro-Mag 90s or early 2000s where this kind of score is, commonplace, but a nice balance would be better. And I think it's been clear. There's been a lot of reporting on this that the league has, and the officials have kind of emphasized not, giving these kind of ticky-tack type calls to certain players, especially on drives. And this result's a little extreme, but I like that, despite the Suns Bucks game kind of going against that the recent games have been a little more tame when it comes to the scoring. There's a little more flow to the game. Players are, getting away with more on defense. I like that personally.
Yeah, I think based on where my predictions a month ago in the standings to where they would be now, I guess I'm kind of 1 for 2 in that regard. I predicted that, and probably most people did, that the 76ers would slide with the loss of Embiid. So they were in that sort of 4 or 5 spot. They're now slid to the 8th. tied with the Heat. And I also thought that the Knicks would kind of drop down too, but they're still kind of in the fight, 4 seed, 2 games out of Cleveland, and their, remaining strength of schedule is, right in the middle of the league. So, who knows if they'll be able to catch up to Cleveland. Cleveland has an easier schedule moving forward. But I mean, there's been some injury status, question marks with the Knicks as well, with OG and Randall and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it kind of looks like they're going to be okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Cavs have really been struggling too as of late, and they've dealt with numerous number of injuries throughout the year.
Yeah. And then kind of more lighthearted, don't really know how to approach it. Just going to try to do my best here. Is the Orlando Magic jersey swap with the Blazers, Grady Dick and Anthony Black.
With the Magic.
What?
The Magic and the Raptors. Right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I mixed up the teams there. But anyway, Grady Dick and Anthony Black standing right next to each other. Based on where they were standing, I think you can kind of put 2 and 2 together of what that was. But really an interesting situation because it seemed like Grady and Anthony kind of beforehand kind of looked at each other and were like, hey, like this would be kind of funny. Like, let's do it. And based on what I was reading, it was kind of an innocent post by the Orlando Magic social team to put the jersey swap out there. At least that's kind of what it seems like. And the tweet just blew up, obviously, an internet funny moment. But something that was crazy is that there was already a social media graduate associate position open on some sort of job site. So I think whoever posted that, it did well. Unfortunately, I think they are, I think they're done. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of just a little lighthearted tidbit. I don't know. People probably saw that, but I just, I think the swap itself was funny, but just seeing like the job posting like go up, I think it was kind of like the perfect sequel.
Yeah, no, I don't have a strong take on this. I'll just say unfortunate for the employee, because I understand why the Magic would take an issue with this, but like you, Matt, I thought it was funny, lighthearted enough. We're adults, I guess.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we're at the buzzer now. We're going to be looking to some games ahead. Anything catch your eyes? I mean, I don't.
I think the Heat Sixers could be pretty interesting tonight. Yeah. Sixers are favored by 1.5. The Heat have got to stack up wins. Same for the Sixers. The Sixers cannot be in the play-in with Embiid. They need as much rest time as possible for him, and to try to get in the flow of the offense as well. So that's a giant game. And then Warriors-Knicks. Both those games are on ESPN tonight. Warriors-Knicks is right after that. Massive game for Golden State. I mean, they were just battling with the Lakers, and that's why that head-to-head game was so crazy last Saturday and everything that went on, because these teams are like not up in the standings. Warriors just above at this point, because the 9 or the 10 decides who gets home court advantage, and they're trying to catch the 8 and 7 seeds as well.
Yeah, I had both of those flagged. Excited for that. And then the other one, which I mentioned earlier, Denver at Minnesota tomorrow night. I'm hoping Minnesota can compete, even though it is a back-to-back, because those are not only 2 of the best teams in the league, but 2 really fun teams to watch. Jokic, Murray, that whole Denver offense, just really entertaining, and then just the Anthony Edwards show. I love to watch. So hopefully that's a good one, and has real implications for the top of the West, as Minnesota's only a half game back behind Denver.
Yeah, I have kind of over the next 2 days, probably 5 games. I would go with Timberwolves Jazz. I would agree, just to kind of keep up with the storyline of how the Wolves are going to fare without Cat. And then I also would agree that Knicks and Warriors, just kind of 2 big market teams, big name teams. Why not? Even though the Knicks have kind of been battling with a few injuries, and maybe the Warriors aren't what they once were.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So the Wolves Jazz at 9 Eastern, Knicks Warriors at 10 Eastern, and then another one you could sort of flip back and forth from is the Grizzlies and Kings. I don't know what it is about the Grizzlies. I just think they're always such an interesting team to watch when paired up against a good team.
Yeah, because they have some no-name players. Because they have
exactly.
so many injuries. You're like, who are these guys?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually think for some weird reason they actually fare like far better than Vegas kind of puts them at when they go up against some better teams. So that'll be interesting to see. It's in Sacramento. You can tune in, flip-flop. And then, Nuggets Timberwolves, I think tomorrow night is going to steal the show. It's the latest game. It's at 9:00. So that's the one that you really want to tune into. And I guess why not to tune into Mavericks and Spurs? That's the only other one, beforehand. I mean, that starts at 8, so you get a little bit of an hour before you go to the Nuggets Timberwolves.
Luka versus Wemby.
Yeah.
Gonna shoot that step back 3 right over it, but he's gonna have to shoot like way up there.
And there are some interesting matchups for Wednesday, but we're gonna leave that for the Wednesday crew. We already covered it enough. So I think that just about does it. I think we're at the buzzer. So I have been your host, Matthew Byrne, joined by Adam Oppenheim, John Yaley, and Mason Williams is pushing the buttons. Remember, if you make it, you take it, and we will see you on Wednesday.